Hey guys, today we're going to carve one of these little trick-or-treat ghost character guys. It's a knife-only project, so I hope you enjoy it, and let's get started. Alright, we're going to get started working on our little ghost. Here's our reference carving, and I'm starting off with an 1.5 by 1.5 by 4-inch block. You can really do this in any size block you want, but I find the 1.5 by 4-inch is a good size piece. It works really well with 1-inch by 1-inch by 3-inch as well too. So don't get too hung up on the size of the wood and just have fun. So first thing I'm going to do is mark a center line. You can extend it across the top and the bottom if you like. I might as well do it on the sides too. You can come across the top. Now, if you like and you have the access, you can cut out a lot of this on the bandsaw. It's a very simplistic character because it's basically just feet sticking out of a round sheet. So what I do is I sketch in the legs and the feet first. Something like that. Measurements don't really matter too much, and you're just going to kind of draw a round shape on top, and that's basically all you need. Like I said, if you have a bandsaw, it's much easier to cut out his feet and round the top. It removes a lot of material. You also kind of want to extend that line where his sheet kind of hangs down. And so here's the front. Those are his eyes. My pencil just broke. And you don't have to draw any of this stuff on. It just kind of helps give you a reference point for you to get started. So all of this is waist, and then obviously he's round on top, so that's waist. First thing I'm going to do is knock off all the sharp corners. Makes the block a little easier to hold. Now I'm using my Helvy knife, but you can use whatever you have on hand. All right, first thing, I'm going to start to establish his feet. Couple of stop cuts. Now you really want to dig in here because you have a lot of material to remove to get to that back pencil line. And you know, if I were to give you a measurement, it's probably about 1/4 inch from the bottom up. Maybe a little less, a little more. Don't get hung up on the measurements. It's really doesn't matter in these types of things. It's one thing I see a lot in carving videos. They specifically mention measurements, 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, and that's fine and all, but at the end of the day, it's just silly little carving. All right, so like I said, you're really going to dig in deep here. And see how I'm kind of avoiding the bottom of his, where his sheet lands, because I want that to be as sharp as possible on the inside corner. So eventually we're gonna go back in and do some stop cuts there. But for now, I'm just establishing the top of his feet here. This is why I say using the bandsaw is probably best for this. But if you have a sharp knife and some patience, it really doesn't take too long. Okay, so we got his feet pretty much blocked in. And now I'm just gonna go in on the top here and just get the other. You kind of want to be careful here. Just take it slow because you're going against the grain. Now, I actually did one of these carvings not too long ago on a live demonstration, and the live video is actually up on my YouTube channel, so you can check that one out. I actually carved this one. And for those of you who don't know, this carving is inspired by Cody Bonham from Block and Knife. Cody's a good friend of mine. He's a really talented carver, and he kind of made a name for himself on Instagram and the Etsy scene by carving a lot of these wooden ghosts. And not necessarily with these feet on them. He had a little bit more of a simplistic design, but I have seen some with feet. So all credit definitely goes to Cody. He's definitely inspired me a lot on my carving journey, and I'm grateful to be able to call him a friend. All right, so got his legs somewhat blocked in here. Now I like to get it as flat as possible. Just take your time. This is really probably the most intense part of the carving. It's not a very difficult carving. I guess if you have some gouges, it might be easier, but this really is a pretty beginner-friendly, knife-only type project that can be achieved. All right, so we got his legs pretty much blocked in here. A little bit more. Now we're going to do the same in the back. So we're just going to create some stop cuts. Cross that line we drew. And if it helps, you can draw a line on the other side. And we're basically just removing all this extra material. Just get my stop cut a little bit deeper here. And then just gonna remove all this excess material. Again, be careful. You have to go against the grain at times. You don't want to slip. Okay, we're getting there. And remove this material the safest way you know how. Don't rush. Okay. There we go. Now you can redraw that pencil line down the center just to kind of keep us honest. The other thing we want to do now, on the bottom, I like to have his feet pointing out. So I come in on the back of his foot, I don't know, about an eighth of an inch or so, and just kind of draw a line and splay those feet outward. And we're going to remove that material. It's pretty simple, just a angled cut like that. Same on the other side. There you go. Little trapezoid shape for you. Another thing we want to do is we want to remove material on each side of the leg because his legs are tucked underneath. So, got our pencil line. You could do the same in the back if you want. Again, the measurements don't really matter. You just kind of want to get those legs tucked in. I always start on the corners. It's less material to remove, makes things a little easier. So I just take bites from each corner, create this little peak area, and then just come in down the center. See how it's tucked in like that? You can do the same thing on the other side. Corner, remove a chip, corner, remove a chip. Do it a couple of times. And then when you go across this section, it's much easier to take material out. And basically now you just want to remove the material from here. Thin down those legs. If you don't feel safe making a cut, flip the piece around, think about it. Don't want to hurt yourself. Same thing on the other side. Thin down that leg. Now I know I should be wearing gloves or finger tape. You guys should absolutely be wearing some sort of safety gear to protect yourselves. Can't stress that enough. Do as I say, not as I do. All right. We got his legs tucked in. Next thing I like to do is come in and separate his feet. So I just come in straight and then make a couple of V-notches. I like to go in pretty deep. Almost all the way to the back. Just like that. And you can round over his feet at this point. Give it a little bit of shape. Here's another really tough part, is kind of rounding over his feet, just because it's awkward to hold with the knife. So the easiest way I've found is to kind of come in at a 45-degree angle here, and then a 45-degree angle on the opposite side, and pop the chips out. Just kind of go back and forth a few times. You want to be pretty deliberate and accurate, because if not, you'll keep getting pieces stuck in this point here, and you'll just end up having to keep digging them out. It gets really frustrating. So it helps if you have a really sharp knife and you're pretty accurate with where your cuts meet up. That's just something that kind of comes with practice. All right, and now I'm just gonna round over the tops of his feet here. Again, be careful. I find myself having to hold it in pretty awkward positions. You know, switch things up. Switch the grip of your knife. Switch the way you hold the piece. There you go. We got his feet pretty rounded. Now, he has two legs, so we gotta separate it. Now you can come in with your knife and just score down the center of his legs. I like to go pretty deep. You can do it in 2-3 passes if you want to get a good depth. And then you just kind of want to cut a V-notch. V-notch? I don't know if I'm using the right terminology here, but you're coming in at an angle on each side to remove that center piece. Again, this is a spot you want to be pretty accurate with your cut, otherwise you're going to end up with that little sliver on the inside that you'll find yourself chasing forever. You can kind of dig it out if you take really small, shallow passes and have some patience. There you go, you get it out. Now, in true fashion of wearing pants, I like to have his pant leg drooped over his shoes here. So I just pick where the top of his shoe is and I just kind of angle it down. You can have it cuffed up if you want. Do whatever you like to your ghost. Now I just score across that line I just created, and from the shoe into the leg is how I'll cut. So you're left with something like that. You see how his shoe is now tucked in. Same thing on the other side. You score it from the shoe into the pant leg. And while we're at it, we might as well round off his legs here. Probably should have done that first, just because we're gonna have to kind of go back in and recut some stuff. Just kind of tweak things as you go along. If you see a funny spot that doesn't blend in well, fix it. You can do another little triangle cut up here. Give you a little bit more separation. All right, now same thing we did in the front, we're going to do to the back. I'm going to just round off the back of his legs here. And we're going to separate his legs in the back now. Same thing. Take your knife, dig in. Same angled cuts. I guess you could do it this way too, if you have a long enough knife. Do that triangle cut up here. Pop out those chips. Do a little cleanup. There we go. Got his legs separated there. Round anything off that doesn't look right. Whatever looks too blocky. Just kind of go around and look what seems a little awkward looking and remove chips. Move some of these pencil lines that we don't need. All right, we are almost done. Okay, next up, we got to round over our ghost. So we need to really remove a lot of material. Now you could, if you want, you could draw a circle on top. Give you some sort of reference line, but again, doesn't matter. It's just a carving. So I'm going to remove a lot of material from each corner. The other thing you could do is you could join up line to line. So you cut all the way from one line to the other line, removing that much material. That's why these reference lines are so great. They give you a nice visual aid, something to cut to. So you see what I did there? I cut everything from this line to this center line. Now, you just do the same thing on each corner. Remove a lot of material. And you don't really want to make it flat. You kind of want to round it over. So you're not just coming in flat at this 45-degree angle. You're kind of creating this flat facet here, and then you're just kind of knocking off the hard edges to round it. So I create a flat spot, knock off the high corner, knock off the high corner, and then I continue to just knock off any high corners that I see, trying to maintain a round cylinder type shape. There we go. This corner. These ghosts really, you have to remove a lot of wood to get them round. Could leave them blocky, I guess, but maybe he's a ghost with a square head. Okay, we got 3 corners rounded. Last corner. Now I always find it easier to start at this halfway point. Cut up one way, flip it around, come at it the other way. Should also make a note that when you're cutting in his legs, you want to make sure that you go in pretty deep, because when you start to round this off, you lose a lot of material. And if you didn't cut it deep enough, you'll kind of be right back where you started, where his legs are just even with the block of wood, and you don't really want that. You'll have to go in and recut everything. So that's kind of annoying. All right, our ghost is fairly round. You can now knock off these pencil lines. Get rid of those high spots. Make sure you remove all saw marks or factory edges from the block of wood. And the good thing about these ghosts is you can keep them pretty rough, because remember, it's a sheet. So you don't want everything to be smooth. You kind of want these flowing lines and awkward movements, because it's supposed to be draped over someone's head. Okay, now we got to round off the top. We know that's our center line. There's a couple ways you can do this. You can eye it. I found for beginners that don't really know how to do it by eye, you can draw a line all the way around, probably about a ½ an inch or so. Again, measurements don't matter too much. You can just eyeball it. So I draw that line, and I have my center point. And I basically just kind of remove material from that line inward. You do a little bit at a time. One cut, do a turn, cut, turn, cut, turn. Try to keep your cuts as even as possible. The same amount of pressure, the same amount of bite. This way you get a nice, even, consistent shape all the way around. Once you do that, you can recut again from that line. So the same thing you just did, but this time you're going to have a little bit more of a steeper angle, and you're going to cut more towards the middle. Again, same amount of pressure, same type of cut, all the way around. Keep turning as you go. Be as methodical and consistent as possible. You see how it's starting to round over? Now this part gets tough because this is all end grain, so it really helps if you have a really sharp knife. So if you need to take a minute and stop and strop your knife, now's the time to really do it, because it starts getting tough at this point. I then start to round off the top. Now I think a pairing cut is best for this. Gives you more control. Just come around. Remove any of those high spots that you see. And then you're getting there little by little. Now you can just come across the top, remove those pencil lines and that factory edge, and there you go. You have a fairly rounded over top to the ghost. Now if you see this edge where we drew our line, that's a very hard edge. See how it just comes up and then just dramatically goes upward? That's easy to fix. You just, with your knife, start knocking off all those high spots. Same thing we did earlier. Remove little pieces at a time. Rotate it as you go. Remove any high spots. Take a step back, look at it. Does anything look funny, look weird? Remove it. Like right here looks a little weird to me. So there you go. Same thing on the other side. And that's the easiest way I know how to round something over with a knife. Removing high spots again. There you go. Now we're pretty much done. One of the beauty about these ghosts is you can leave it as simple or get as detailed as you want. I like to do detailed stuff at times, but sometimes it's nice to be simplistic. So we're gonna give this guy some eyes. And you could redraw the center line if it helps. Keep it symmetrical. But let me see. Might be too low. I want his eyes a little bit higher up. Draw a big oval one side. Big oval on the other side. Now to cut these eyes in, you can do it with a knife, or you could do it with a V-tool or a small little tiny veiner. Like I said, this is pretty much a knife-only project, so we're going to come in and just do it with our knife. You need to have a little bit of skill to do this, but if you're patient, you take your time, you can get it done. So take the tip of your knife. I start at the top center point of the eye, dig in just with the tip of the blade, and you're just going to score around your pencil line. Very slowly and gently. You kind of have to rotate the piece and the knife at the same time. Take your time. So I do 1/2 at a time. So I started at this top middle section and I ended at the bottom middle section. So I do that 1/2 and then I take the knife out. I re-establish how my grip is, come in at that bottom middle section, score all the way around, tracing that eye. Come all the way to the top. And there you go. So you essentially just created 2 half circles. I have seen people use the tip of their blade like this as a pencil to do it. I don't like doing that. I feel like I have no control over the knife. So I prefer this like pairing grip. But you do whatever works best for you. This is just what is comfortable to me and works best for me. Do the same thing on the other eye. Take your time, be patient. Try not to slip. This is a spot where you absolutely can slip and hurt yourself if you're not careful. You don't need to dig in deep here. Okay. Once you have both of those eyes scored in, take the tip of your blade and you're just going to remove a sliver from the inside of the eye. Now, again, I come in at the halfway point, but this time on the side of the eye, and go up. I do the same thing for the other side, halfway point. Take out a little sliver coming towards that top. Now I start in the middle, remove and go to the bottom. You might have to do it in 1 or 2 passes. Do the other side, middle, join at the bottom. There you go, you got his eye cut in. Like I said, it's much easier to do if you have a V-tool or a veiner or some other type of tool, but I don't want you getting hung up on the tools if you don't have them, because almost anything can be achieved with the knife if you're patient enough and safe enough. Take your time. You might have to go in a couple of times. You may even have to go back in and rescore it if you didn't go in deep enough. Try not to do that because you'll end up with a lot of these fuzzy chips in there that are hard to get out. Okay, I'm going to just remove those pencil lines. And that's all you really need to do for the eyes. You could come around the edge here just to round off. That outer section of the eye. Totally unnecessary, especially if you're going to paint these guys. But I'm just showing you for the video. Again, just keep doing those halfway points. One of the reasons I do that is because when you're doing these curved cuts, you start to end up going against the grain at some point, and something is definitely going to split out. And you could absolutely ruin a piece because of that. Not ruin it, but you'll have to go back in and do more work. Now you can give them a little mouth. This is a lot harder to do with a knife. It's better if you have a little gouge. I'm going to attempt to do it with the knife because, like I said, you can just, with the very tip of your knife, you're just going to kind of go in at a 45-degree angle and rotate the knife, maintaining that same angle. Now it doesn't look as nice or as clean, but I'm just showing that you can absolutely achieve that look. Looks a little chewed up. You could go in with a drill bit and just drill out a hole for his mouth, but okay, we got his eyes and his mouth. Now you can just call this guy done at this point, but we're gonna take him a step further because he is a ghost. He's wearing a sheet on his head. We want him to have these flowy, draped lines. Now for me, there's no rhyme or reason to these. You can kind of think about it and see how a piece of cloth would drape over something, but it's just a little carving. There you go. So it'll go all around. I draw various lines of different heights and squiggles. Once you have those lines drawn in, very simple. We're going to take our knife and we're just going to score those lines. And I found it's easier to pick one side or the other. And you'll see what I'm saying in a second. So I want this section to be tucked under this section. So I'm going to just come in from this side and remove a chunk. See what I'm saying? How this part is now tucked under that section. And that's kind of what's helping create the fold effect that you see when a sheet is draped over something. So I'm really kind of coming at an angle with that. Now I kind of want this one to pop out, so I'm going to come in from the other side and remove that chunk. Let's see what I'm saying. So now this fold is now popping up. And you don't really have to put much thought into it. You can just pick a side and run with it, which is kind of what I'm going to do here as I go through the rest of the carving. I'm just pointing it out. You can really think about it and add those details if you wanted to. Just each line, remove some slivers. A little bit of an unsafe cut right here, so I'm just gonna take a minute, take a shallower pass to remove those chips. Also, again, if you have access to the tools, you could use a V-tool for this. I generally carve predominantly with just a knife, so I try to find ways to use my knife for every application. But sometimes you just can't help it. You're in a tight spot, or you don't want to spend a long time doing something, so you break out a gouge or a V-tool. I absolutely do that when I can. But like I said, most of the time I'm carving outside. All I have is my knife on me. I don't want to carry gouges and all types of other things with me if I'm just out and about. All right, once we have all those cut in, I just go back and I soften the opposite edge. Of every line that we just cut. So the side that didn't get cut, I just go in and I knock off the sharp corner. This only really helps kind of soften the look of the piece, but also if you go and you paint it, having these hard edges is not great for the paint. It's kind of like a weak spot, and that's eventually where the paint is going to chip off. Okay. Now you could stop there, or you can go even further. What you could do is you can deepen each one of these little folds by just turning the piece upside down and following the shape of each fold. You're just going to cut these little notches. And you can make them big, you can make them small. You're just going to go around each one. I try to do various sizes so it's a little inconsistent. You don't want it to look too uniform. And we got one more here that we missed. Now all that kind of does is just create these shadow lines so that when he's standing up, it looks like the sheet is just draped over. Gives it a little bit more of a dynamic look. All right, that's pretty much it. I'm gonna just add a little of these fold details. They're just V-cuts in his pant legs. I'm going to make them symmetrical just to give myself a little bit of a challenge, but you can absolutely do whatever you want. You kind of want to think about how pants would drape over. You know, maybe they're a lot more bunched up here and in the back than at the top. Usually back here there's a lot of wrinkles. He's wearing some baggy jeans as he's going trick-or-treating. You can connect them, you can do all types of crazy things, get carried away. I've been on a little bit of a symmetrical kick lately, just trying to do my best to get as even and symmetrical as possible. You know, maybe his pants are bunching up right there. We got some folds here. Okay, there you have it. Your little trick-or-treat ghost guy. You can add more details. You can, like this guy, I added some ripped clothing to him. I gave him a little bit more curves and shape to it. You could do that just by making these scooping cuts, or if you have a gouge. You can certainly do it that way. You can definitely give a lot more depth to these guys. But yeah, you can give them a hand holding something, a little trick-or-treat basket. I think I've seen one that Cody did with he was holding a knife. So yeah, you can really do a lot with these guys, and yeah. All right, guys, and there you have it. We got our carved ghosts. I hope you guys are able to carve one, and I'd love to see what they look like. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and keep an eye out for more tutorials.